My dad asked me to hand my home to my sister, like I owed her everything. Thinking I forget, he threw me out at 15. So I finally told him the secret his new wife had hidden and their family fell apart overnight. When I turned 7, Dad, a 42-year-old male at the time, married this woman I'll call Beth, a 35-year-old female because that's her real name, lol. She seemed nice at first, did that whole trying too hard stepmom thing, you know. But everything changed after she had my half-sister Jenny when I was a kid. Dad was always super harsh with me, like way over the top strict. Nothing I ever did was enough for him. I still remember getting a B+ on this really hard chemistry test. And instead of being happy, he just looked at me and said, "Why isn't this an A? I made the basketball team." He'd be like, "Why aren't you starting that kind of stuff all the time?" But with Jenny, totally different story. She could literally fail a test and they'd be like, "Oh, honey, it's okay. You tried your best." Beth made sure Jenny was treated like some kind of princess while I was just there. The guy who kept messing everything up. Looking back now, I'm pretty sure I had ADHD or something that never got diagnosed. Like I couldn't sit still in class, had trouble focusing, that kind of stuff. But instead of trying to figure out what was wrong, Dad would just scream at me. His favorite thing to say was, "Why can't you just be normal like your sister?" While Beth stood there nodding along like I was some kind of problem that needed fixing. Dad worked these crazy long hours at his construction company, so he wasn't home much. That's when Beth would really show who she was. She'd forget to make enough food for dinner, so I'd have to make myself a sandwich, or she'd wash my clothes wrong on purpose so they'd shrink or get ruined. Little stuff that I couldn't really prove. You get what I mean? If I tried telling Dad, he'd just say I was making trouble again because that's what Beth had him believing. The worst part was all the mind games she played. She'd move my stuff around, then tell Dad I was being messy, or something would get broken. And somehow it was always my fault. Dad believed every word, because why would Beth lie about that? She had him completely wrapped around her finger. Then came the day that changed everything. I was walking home from school, taking my usual shortcut through Wilson Park. That's when I saw Beth with this guy by the old gazebo. At first I thought maybe it was just some friend or whatever, but then I saw them kissing, and not just a quick kiss either, if you know what I mean. I think Beth saw me running away, but I wasn't sure. I recognized the guy too. Mark, I think his name was. He used to come to our house sometimes for these charity meetings Beth was supposedly running. Real buff dude, always wearing fancy suits. Looked like he lived at the gym. I had no clue what to do. Tell Dad. Yeah, right. Like he'd believe me. Beth had spent years making sure Dad thought I was just some troublemaker. Plus, Jenny was 8 years old at the time and Dad was obsessed with her. He'd probably think I was just jealous or trying to cause problems, so I kept my mouth shut, tried to forget what I saw. But then I started noticing stuff I couldn't unsee, like how Jenny's hair was this weird reddish-brown color that nobody else in the family had. Dad never noticed because he was always distracted. One night, I got up to get some water and overheard Beth on the phone. I was about to walk into the kitchen, but the second I heard her tone, I stopped. She was whispering, but I caught enough to make my stomach drop. "You don't understand Mark. He's starting to notice," she said. I had no idea who she was talking about at first, but then she said it. "He thinks she's his, but we both know the truth." I felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I knew exactly who she meant. Jenny, my dad, wasn't her father. Mark was. I must have made some noise because Beth suddenly went quiet. Then she called out, "All fake sweetness, honey. You shouldn't be up this late." I bolted back to my room before she could see me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd be sick. I didn't have proof, but I knew now. I knew the truth, and I knew Beth would do anything to keep me from telling Dad. Beth must have figured out I knew something, though. She started watching me like crazy, especially around Jenny. I couldn't even walk past Jenny's room without Beth appearing out of nowhere asking what I was doing. She started telling Dad I was acting weird around Jenny. Now I get it. She was building up to something making Dad suspicious of me. I remember this one time I was just helping Jenny with her multiplication tables basic math stuff, you know. Beth came in and practically yanked Jenny away, saying she'd help instead. Then told Dad I was getting too close to Jenny. The way she said it, man, I can still hear her voice. It makes me feel sick thinking about it. That's how things went for like 2 weeks. Beth watching every single thing I did, whispering stuff to Dad when she thought I couldn't hear. Dad started giving me these weird looks at dinner. I tried staying out of the house as much as I could, but that just made everything worse. Beth told Dad I was probably doing drugs or something. Plus, nobody even asked if I was okay. Nobody cared that my grades were tanking because I was so stressed out. Dad just got mad and madder at me. About 2 weeks after I saw Beth with Mark in the park, I came home from school like normal. That day, something felt weird right when I walked in. There were 2 police cars parked outside our house, and I could hear Beth crying before I even opened the door, like that super fake crying people do when they're trying to get attention. I walk in and there's Beth on the couch crying her eyes out with 2 cops sitting across from her. Dad standing in the corner looking like he's about to murder someone. Jenny's nowhere to be seen. Everyone stops talking and looks at me when I come in. One of the cops stands up and asks if we can talk. They take me to the kitchen while the other cop stays with Beth and Dad. That's when they tell me that Beth and Jenny told them I'd been touching Jenny like inappropriately. I couldn't even process what they were saying at first. like my brain just shut down or something. I kept saying, what? No, that never happened, over and over, but they just kept asking these horrible questions. Where did I touch her? How many times did I threaten her to keep quiet? I felt like I was going to throw up. I could hear Beth in the other room still doing that fake crying thing, saying stuff like, I should have known. I saw the signs. Dad wasn't saying anything, just standing there with his fists clenched. The cops asked if I wanted to make a statement. I told them Beth was lying, that she was trying to get rid of me because I saw her cheating on Dad. Big mistake. They didn't believe me. Dad completely lost it when he heard me say that. Started screaming about how I was trying to ruin his marriage because I was jealous of Jenny. Called me every name you can think of. Said I was sick in the head and needed help. The cops couldn't find any actual evidence, obviously, since nothing ever happened. Plus, I was only 15 years old back then. But the damage was done. Dad threw a garbage bag at me and told me I had 10 minutes to pack my stuff and get out. Said if I ever came near Jenny again, he'd kill me himself. I tried one more time to tell him about Beth and Mark, but he literally grabbed me by my shirt and shoved me toward the stairs. I'd never seen him that angry before. Beth was standing there with this tiny smirk that only I could see. I grabbed whatever clothes I could fit in the bag and my school backpack. Tried to get my Game Boy, but Dad said everything in the house was his since he paid for it. The whole time I was up there, I could hear Beth downstairs probably making sure Dad stayed mad. When I came back down, Jenny was there. She looked confused, like she didn't understand what was happening. Beth had her arms around her like she was protecting her from me. That's what kills me the most, the look on Jenny's face. She was just a kid. Beth used her own daughter to get rid of me. Dad told me to give him my house key, said I wasn't his son anymore. Beth made this fake, sad face and said, maybe someday you'll get the help you need. I wanted to scream that she was lying, that she was the one who needed help. But what was the point? They weren't going to believe me. They watched me leave, probably making sure I actually went. I looked back once. Dad was holding Jenny and Beth was still doing that fake crying thing. The last thing I heard was Dad telling Jenny she was safe now. I walked around for hours that night, had like $40 in my wallet and no idea what to do. I couldn't go to any of my friends' houses because Beth had already told all their parents I was some kind of predator. She'd planned this whole thing perfectly. I found this abandoned building where some homeless guys stayed. They let me crash there that first night. That's where I lived for the next few months. I couldn't go to school anymore. Obviously couldn't get a real job because I was only 15 years old. Did some stuff I'm not proud of just to eat. The worst part, Beth made sure everyone in town heard her version of the story. I couldn't go anywhere without people giving me these looks. I lost all my friends. Even teachers who used to like me wouldn't talk to me anymore. My whole life was just gone. That's why I had to leave town eventually. I ended up spending about 6 months in that abandoned building I mentioned. It was this old warehouse near the train tracks. There were like 5 to 6 other guys living there too. Most of them were actually decent people who just had bad luck, you know. This older guy, Tom, kind of took me under his wing. He'd been living on the streets for years after his wife died and he lost his job. He taught me stuff like where to get food, which places would let you use their bathroom, how to stay warm in winter, basic survival stuff I never thought I'd need to know. I kept thinking Dad would snap out of it, realize the truth and come get me, but he never did. He just didn't care. I tried getting jobs, but nobody would hire me. Beth had made sure everyone in our small town knew her version of what happened. Even McDonald's turned me down. I was that guy everyone whispered about at the grocery store. Parents would literally pull their kids away if they saw me coming. I started doing some sketchy stuff to get by. Nothing violent, but yeah, not proud of that time in my life. Tom kept telling me I needed to leave town, start fresh somewhere else. But I was scared, you know. I was just a kid, really. Where was I supposed to go then? One night, these cops showed up at the warehouse. Someone had reported us for trespassing. They gave us 10 minutes to clear out. I lost most of my stuff that night, what little I had left anyway. Tom and I walked to the next town over. It took us all night. We ended up at this truck stop diner. I was counting my money, had like $27 left. When Tom tells me he's got a cousin in the city who might be able to help, said his cousin manages some restaurants and owes him a favor. The city was like 200 miles away. But what else was I going to do? Tom gave me his cousin's address and the last $40 he had. Told me to get out while I still could. Said he was too old to start over, but I still had a chance. I never saw Tom again after that. Sometimes I wonder what happened to him. I took a Greyhound to the city. Spent my first week sleeping in the bus station. Finally found Tom's cousin Dave. He was nothing like what I expected. Real clean-cut guy. Managed like 3 different restaurants. He gave me a job washing dishes at this fancy Italian place. The first few months were rough. I was sleeping in the restaurant storage room. Dave let me crash there after hours. I saved every penny I could. Finally got enough to rent this tiny room in a really bad part of town. But hey, it was mine. I started learning everything I could about the restaurant business. Moved up from dishes to prep cook, then line cook. The head chef noticed I was good with numbers and started teaching me about food costs, inventory, stuff like that. The restaurant had this regular customer, Amy. She'd come in with her mom like twice a week. Always sat in my section after I became a waiter. She was in college studying business or something. We talked whenever it wasn't too busy. She was the first person in years who didn't look at me like I was garbage. I remember exactly what she said that first night. "Hey, what's good here?" she asked, actually looking at me instead of the menu. The carbonara is pretty great. Marco makes the sauce from scratch," I said, probably sounding like an idiot. "You actually know who makes the food," she smiled. "Most places I go, the servers just read the specials and disappear." We ended up talking for like 10 minutes about food. Her mom just sat there smiling. Later, I heard her mom say, "Amy, stop bothering the poor waiter. He has other tables." Amy looked around the empty restaurant and laughed. "Yeah, Mom, he's clearly swamped." They started coming in more often, always requesting my section. Amy was studying business at the local college, and she'd sometimes bring her homework. One night she was struggling with some accounting stuff. "This makes no sense," she groaned, staring at her textbook. "How can a company lose money but still show a profit of accounting?" I said while refilling her water. "They're probably moving numbers around to make it look good for investors." She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "How do you know about corporate accounting?" Truth was, I'd been reading business books at the library, wanted to understand how restaurants worked, maybe open my own someday. I told her this and she got super excited. "That's amazing. Most people our age don't care about this stuff. Hey, want to look at this problem with me?" Next thing I know, I'm sitting at her table during my break, helping her with homework. Her mom would just watch us with this knowing smile. This went on for months. Amy would come in, we'd talk about business stuff, and I'd try not to fall in love with her. Failed miserably at that part, by the way. She was so smart, but never made me feel stupid. Like this one time she said, "I don't get why you're working here. You're clearly good at this business stuff." "Not everyone can afford college," I mumbled, feeling embarrassed. "You don't need college to be successful," she said. "My dad never went, and he owns 3 companies now. He says experience matters more than degrees." That conversation stuck with me. I started thinking maybe I could do more than just work in restaurants. I eventually got my GED by studying at the library on my days off. Amy helped me with the math parts. She never asked about my past, and I never told her. I was too scared she'd stop talking to me if she knew. That was my life for about 5 years. Wake up, work, study, sleep, repeat. I didn't date, didn't make friends, really. Just focused on surviving and trying to be better. The whole time I kept thinking about Jenny, hoping Beth wasn't messing her up too bad. One night, Amy came in looking super excited. "Guess what? Dad's looking for someone to help manage his new property development project. Entry-level position, but lots of room to grow. You should apply." I froze up. "Amy, I never even finished high school. But you got your GED right. That's all that matters. Come on, just try. What's the worst that could happen?" The worst that could happen. She could find out about my past, about Beth's lies about everything. But Amy kept pushing. "Please, for me. Dad trusts my judgment, and I know you'd be amazing at this." So I applied. Had to borrow a suit from Dave. Still fit weird. The interview was terrifying. Amy's dad just stared at me for like a full minute before speaking. "Amy says you understand business. Prove it." He said somehow I managed to talk intelligently about property development trends I'd read about. Even suggested some ideas for his new project. At the end, he just nodded and said, "You start Monday." When I told Amy I got the job, she hugged me. First time anyone had hugged me in years. I almost cried right there in the restaurant. "See, she said I told you you could do it." That job changed everything. Her dad became like the father I wished I'd had. He actually listened when I had ideas, taught me everything about real estate development. Within a year, I was managing my own projects. The whole time, Amy and I got closer. We'd get coffee after work, talk for hours, but I never asked her out. Kept thinking about Beth's lies about my past. Amy deserved better than some guy who lived on the street. Then came the night that changed everything. We were working late on a project proposal, just us in the office. "You know," Amy said suddenly, "for someone so smart about business, you're really dumb about some things." "What do you mean?" She looked me right in the eyes. "I've been waiting 2 years for you to ask me out." I just sat there like an idiot. Finally managed to say, "I'm not good enough for you, Amy. There's stuff about me you don't know. Try me," she said. So I just told her everything about Beth, about the lies about being homeless, kept waiting for her to look disgusted or scared. Instead, she started crying. Then she got mad. Not at me, at Beth and my dad. "Those horrible people," she said. "How could they do that to their own son?" Then she kissed me, just reached across the desk and kissed me. And yeah, that's how Amy and I finally got together. But life has a way of bringing up the past when you least expect it. Amy and I got married pretty quick after we started dating. Her family was amazing. They actually treated me like a son. We had our first kid, a boy, and bought this really nice 5-bedroom house in a good neighborhood. Life was perfect. Then about 3 months ago, I was scrolling through Facebook at work and saw this friend request. The profile picture showed my dad looking way older than I remembered. I just sat there staring at my phone like an idiot. Amy noticed something was wrong as soon as she got home. I was sitting in our kitchen just staring at nothing. "Babe, what's wrong?" she asked, putting our son down for his nap. "Dad found me on Facebook," I said. "He sent a friend request." She sat down next to me. "What are you going to do?" "No idea. Haven't opened his message yet." "Want me to read it first?" I handed her my phone. She opened the message and started reading out loud. "Son, I know it's been a long time. I'm getting older now and been thinking a lot about the past. Not a day goes by that I don't think about you. Beth and I want to make things right. Jenny misses her big brother. Please give us a chance to explain. Love, Dad. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Jenny misses me. She probably doesn't even remember me. She was 8 when everything happened. Amy squeezed my hand. You don't have to respond, but I did. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I wanted to know why now. After 16 years, so I accepted the request and messaged back, why now? His response came fast. I'm 58 now. Had some health scares. Made me realize life's too short for grudges. Jenny's getting married soon. Would mean a lot to have you there. We messaged back and forth for a few weeks. Found out Jenny's 24, now works in marketing, engaged to some lawyer guy. Beth's still the same, according to Dad. Yeah, I bet she is. Amy kept telling me to be careful. People don't change that much, she said. But I wanted to believe Dad had changed. Stupid, right? They asked to visit. Amy said it was my choice, but she'd support whatever I decided, so I said yes. Big mistake. They showed up on a Saturday morning. Dad looked old, like really old. Gray hair, walks with a slight limp. Beth looked exactly the same, actually. Still had that fake smile. Jenny had grown up, looked even more like Mark now, but nobody seemed to notice except me. The first few minutes were awkward. Nobody knew what to say. Then Jenny saw our family photos. Is this your son? She asked, looking at pictures of our 3-year-old. Yeah, that's Jake, I said. I'm an aunt, she whispered, then started crying. Beth immediately went to comfort her. Same old Beth. Dad stepped into my house like he belonged there, eyes sweeping over everything with that barely hidden approval he never used to give me. You've done well for yourself, he said, nodding. Real estate development, huh? Never would have guessed. I folded my arms, already bracing for whatever this visit was really about. Amy's dad gave me a chance, I said, letting the words hang. Unlike some people, Beth, always the spin doctor, jumped in before the silence got too heavy. We all made mistakes back then, she said, voice syrupy. We're here to make things right, Amy, who had been standing near the door like she was waiting for a reason to leave, took the out immediately. I'll check on Jake, she said, disappearing before she could say something she'd regret. Smart. Jenny, though, had no such filter. She wandered through the living room, fingers skimming across the furniture, the walls like she was trying to claim it. This house is amazing, she said, peering down the hallway. 5 bedrooms, but you only have 1 kid. I forced a polite smile. Planning for more, I said, and we use one as an office. Not that it's any of your business. Dad clapped a hand on my shoulder, steering me toward my office with the whole, let's talk man-to-man routine. That should have been my first warning. He sank into my chair like he owned it. Son, he started. I need to ask you something important. I stayed standing. What, your sister's getting married, starting a family? He let that sit for a second like it was supposed to mean something to me. They're looking for a house, but everything's so expensive these days. My stomach turned. No way. I could already see where this was going. You've got all this space, he continued, gesturing around like he was selling me my own damn home. 5 bedrooms for 3 people. Jenny and Steve could really use a place like this. You're doing well. Could easily buy another house. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Are you seriously asking me to give my house to Jenny? Well, not give. Exactly, he said, like that somehow made it better. Maybe sell it to them cheap. You make good money now. I literally lost it. Get out, I said. He sighed, exasperated, like I was the one being difficult. Son, be reasonable. It's your sister. The sister you chose over me. My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. The one you kicked me out for. That sister? That was a misunderstanding. I barked out a laugh. A misunderstanding. You threw me out at 15 years old. I lived on the streets. He had the nerve to look annoyed like I was dragging up something inconvenient. That's in the past. Jenny needs. My voice rose. My hands curled into fists at my sides. What about what I needed? A father who believed me, maybe. Before he could come up with another excuse, Beth came rushing in, that fake, concerned expression plastered on her face. Everything okay in here? I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Oh yeah, Beth, everything's fantastic. I turned to her, grin sharp enough to cut. Dad's just asking me to give my house to your daughter. You know, the one who isn't even his. The room went dead silent. Beth's face drained of color. Dad froze. Jenny came in looking confused, probably trying to figure out if she'd heard me right. And just like that, the whole game changed. I didn't stick around to watch the fallout, just walked out of my office and went to find Amy and Jake. Found them in the backyard, Jake playing with his trucks while Amy watched him. One look at my face and she knew something had happened. She took Jake inside while everyone else was still processing what I'd said. Beth tried damage control, telling Dad I was lying, that I was just trying to hurt them like I always did. Classic Beth move, but Dad wasn't buying it this time. Maybe because Jenny was standing right there looking exactly like Mark, or maybe he'd had doubts all along. He demanded a DNA test right there. Jenny started crying, not the fake kind like her mom, but real confused tears. She kept asking what was going on, why everyone was yelling. Beth grabbed her and practically dragged her out of our house, saying I was just causing trouble again, trying to ruin their lives because I was jealous. Dad stayed behind. He didn't say anything for a long time, just sat in our living room staring at nothing. Then he asked me how I knew. So I told him everything about seeing Beth with Mark in the park when I was 15 years old, about how Jenny looked just like him, about how Beth framed me when she realized I might tell someone. He didn't believe me at first, kept saying I was wrong, that Beth would never do that. But I could see the doubt eating at all those little things that never made sense were suddenly clicking into place. Jenny's reddish-brown hair that neither of them had, her facial features that didn't match anyone in the family, Beth's constant need to keep me away from Jenny. The next week was crazy. Dad actually got that DNA test done, came to my office when he got the results, didn't even wait to get home, just walked in, sat down, and broke down crying. The test showed zero chance he was Jenny's father. Everything he thought he knew about his life for the last 24 years was a lie. I should have felt satisfied, maybe even happy. This was proof that I'd been telling the truth all along. But watching my dad cry in my office just made me feel empty. This man who'd always seemed so strong, who terrified me as a kid, looked completely broken. He asked about Mark. Did I know where he was, what he did? I told him what little I knew. Mark used to hang around the homeless spot sometimes, usually messed up on something. Haven't seen him in years, though. No idea if he's even still alive. Dad walked out of my office looking like he'd aged 2 decades in 10 minutes, but he wasn't defeated. He was furious. I figured that was the end of it. Let them deal with their own mess, not my problem anymore. Then Amy called me at work the next day. Turned out Dad had gone home and lost it. Beth tried to spin it like always, said the test had to be wrong, that the lab made a mistake. But for the first time, Dad wasn't buying it. Decades of manipulation and lies came crashing down all at once, and he snapped. He didn't just yell, he hurt her bad. She's in the hospital now. 3 fractured vertebrae. Doctors say she'll probably need pain meds for the rest of her life. Jenny was the one who called the cops. Dad got arrested right there in their living room. They're talking 3 to 5 years since he's got a clean record, and his age might work in his favor. But Beth's family is pushing for the maximum sentence, and Jenny, her whole world just collapsed overnight. The wedding's off. Turns out her fancy lawyer fiancé wasn't interested in inheriting this level of baggage. Now she's been blowing up my phone, begging me to help her find her real dad. Amy keeps telling me to block them all, to walk away and be done with it. And she's probably right, but part of me can't. Not for Beth, not for Dad, but for Jenny. She didn't ask for any of this. Everything she thought was true about her life just turned into a lie. Then today I heard Beth's already hooked on the pain meds. Her family checked her into rehab. Jenny's staying with her aunt, refuses to even speak to Beth. Dad's looking at real prison time. Their perfect little family gone just like that. And the weirdest part, I don't feel good about any of it. I thought proving I was telling the truth would feel satisfying, that I'd finally feel some kind of justice, but it just feels empty. Like watching a house burn down long after there's anything left inside to save. At that time, I was just focusing on my family. Amy was pregnant again, a girl this time, and those extra bedrooms were finally going to good use, just not in the way Dad and Beth expected. Funny how life works out sometimes. However, after 2 months, everything went down. Things have gotten even more complicated. Dad's trial was last month. I didn't go. My lawyer advised against it. Plus, I honestly didn't want to see any of them. Found out through Jenny that he got 3 years. Could have been worse. But the judge took his age and clean record into account. Still at 58 years old, 3 years is a long time. Beth's still in rehab. Turns out she'd been taking pain pills way before Dad put her in the hospital. Her sister told Jenny that Beth's been using them for years. Just hid it really well. Makes sense now why she was always so paranoid and making up crazy stuff. She's looking at least 6 more months of treatment. Jenny's been well, she's not doing great. She went looking for Mark on her own, asking around at homeless shelters and stuff. Finally found someone who knew him. Turns out he died 2 years ago from an overdose behind some convenience store. Jenny completely broke down when she found out. She keeps texting me these long messages at like 3 o'clock in the morning, talking about how her whole life feels like a lie. Says she can't even look in the mirror anymore because all she sees is Mark's face. I feel bad for her, but Amy says I need to keep my distance. She's right. Every time I respond to Jenny, she gets more attached, starts asking more questions about the past. The weirdest part, Jenny's ex-fiancé tried reaching out to me, wanted to know if the crazy ran in the family because he's worried about having kids with her. I told him to get lost. Yeah, Jenny's going through stuff, but she doesn't deserve that kind of judgment. Found out Beth's been telling people I made up the whole thing about Mark to get revenge. Even with the DNA test proving Jenny isn't Dad's kid, she's still trying to make me look like the bad guy. Some of our old neighbors actually believe her. Small-town people love drama, I guess. Amy's pregnancy is going well. We're having a girl. Sometimes I look at my son playing and think about Jenny at that age. Makes me wonder if things would have been different if Dad had noticed the signs earlier, or if I'd told someone else about seeing Beth with Mark. But you can't change the past, right? The house feels different now. Like all that negative energy from when they visited is finally gone. We're turning Jenny's future room, the one Dad wanted us to give her, into a nursery for the baby. Amy's got it all planned out. Pink and gray theme little stars on this. I still think about Tom sometimes, that homeless guy who helped me when I first got kicked out. Wish I could tell him how things turned out, show him I made something of myself like he said I could. Hope he's okay wherever he is. Been getting messages from Dad's side of the family, some supporting him, some mad at him for what he did to Beth. None of them ever cared where I was all those years I was homeless. Funny how family works sometimes. That's pretty much where things are at now. Not sure there's much more to tell. Life goes on, you know. But to everyone who's been following this story and sending support, thanks. Writing all this out helped more than I thought it would. Special thanks to the person who suggested therapy. You were right. Jenny messaged me one last time yesterday. Said she's moving out of state, starting fresh somewhere new. Asked if we could stay in touch. I told her maybe someday, but not now. Need to focus on my own family for a while. That's it, I guess. Story's over. No more drama. No updates needed.